Alright, Code Federal Regulations 2019, Title 40, Volume 1, Subpart H, on Part 22. Um, 22.1, Scope of this part of the consolidated rule of the practice of government on administrative injunction, educatory proceedings, assessment of the administrative of the civil penalty under Section 14A of Federal Infesticides, Fungicides, Rodenticides, amended with the Title 7 of the United States Code 1361A, assessment any of the administrative civil penalty under Section 11.3, 113D, 205C, 211D, 213D of the Clean Air Act is amended. Title 40 U.S. Code 7413D, 75224C, 7545D, 7457D. That permission non-conformance of the engine for the vehicle's equipment under Section 207C and 213D with the Clean Air Act of the Title 40 U.S. Code 7541C, 7547D. The assessment any administrative civil penalty with the revocation of the suspension of any of the permit under Section 105A and F of the Marine Protection Research Sanctuaries Act of Title 33 U.S. Code 1415A and F. Issuance compliance order to issue with corrective action determination with the permit Section 3008A3 with the suspension revocation authority of the operator the pursuant Section 3005E with the assessment of any civil penalty under Section 3008 906 9006, 11005, Solid Waste Disposal Act as amended. Except as provided in Part 24 of this chapter, the assessment aimed at administrative and civil penalties under Section 16A207 of the Civil Tax Control Act, assessment any Class 2 penalty under Section 309G and 311B6 for the termination aimed with the permit issue pursuant to Section 402A of the Clean Water Act is amended. The assessment of any of the administrative civil penalty under Section 109 Comprehensive Environmental Response Compensation Liability Act of 1980 is amended with the assessment of the Administrative Civil Penalty Act of 325 of the Emergency Plan Community Right to Know Act of 1986. Assessment of the Administrative Civil Penalty under Section 1414G3B, 1423C, 1447B of the Safe Drinking Water Act, or issuance to any of the order requiring both compliance with the assessment of the Administrative Civil Penalty under Section 1423C. The assessment of the administrative civil penalty issued with any of the order requiring compliance under Section 5 of the Mercury contained with the Rechargeable Battery Management Act. The assessment of the administrative civil penalty under Section 1908B of the Act to Prevent Pollution from Ships as amended. Supplemental rules set forth in Subpart H and I with the part of the tab of special procedure with the procedure with identifying paragraph A with the section procedure the different with the procedure with the subpart A and with the G with the spell with the inconsistent with the existing between subparts A and G with the subparts and subparts H and I with the subparts H and I part shall apply. Questioning arising with any of the shape of the proceeding which not addressed with the consolidated rule with the practice resolved with the discretion of the administrator with environmental appeal of the board or regional administrator with the presiding officer provided within these consolidated rules of practices. 22.2 for the use of the number and gender, use of the consolidated rule practice where singular also will include with the plural words and masculine gender also include with the feminine and vice versa as in the case of the may require. Definition. The following definitions apply with the consolidated rule of practice. The act means with a particular statute authorizing procedure to issue with the administrative law judge means an administrative law judge appointed within Title 5 U.S. Code 3105. The administrative means with the administrative of the U.S. Environmental Protective Agency or his delegate agency meaning the United States Environmental Protection Agency. Business confidential claim means confidential claim defined in Title 40 CFR 2201H, and the cleric of the board means the individual duly authorized to serve the clerical environmental appeal. For the common error means any person other than a party representative of the such for the person will be timely. 1. Submit the writing with the regional rehearing clerk that he providing with the intent of the provide and commandments of the proposed assessment of the penalty pursuant to the Section 309G4, 311B6C, and the Clean Water Act of the 1423C with the Safe Drinking Water Act, whichever appeal within to the intent of the participant with the proceeding and provides the regional hearing clerk with the return address of the complainant means any person authorized to issue the complaint with the accordance with the Section 22, 13, 22, 14 on the behalf of the agent for the person alleged for the being of the violation of the Act. Complainant should not be the member of the Environmental Appeal Board of the Regional Judicial Office of any other person who will participate and abide with the aim of the injunction. Consolidated rule of the practice of the regulation for this part. Environmental Appeal Board means for the board with the agency described in Title 40 CFR 125. Final order means that any order with the issue with the Environmental Appeal Board administrative after the appeal with the initial decision, accelerated decision Discussion, decision of the dismissal of the default order disposing of the matter of the controversy between the party with the initial decision which becomes the final order of the title 2227C. Final order issued in accordance with the 2218 hearing means any of the evidentiary hearing on record or opening to the public to the extent with the consistent with the 2222A2 for the conduct of the proceeding under the consolidated rules of the practice. Hearing clerk meaning with the hearing of the clerk of the Mail Code 1900, U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, 1200 Pennsylvania Ave, North Washington, D.C., 2460. Decision meanings of the discussion issue of the presiding officer pursuant to 2217C with the 2222B with the 2227, the resolve of the outstanding with the issue for the proceeding with the party with the meaning of the aim of the person participating with the proceeding with is compliant with the respond with the intervener, permanent action means with the provocation, suspension, determination of all of the part of the permanent issue within Section 102, Maritime Protection, Research for the Sanctuary Act, and of the Clean Water Act, or Section 3005D with the Solid Waste Disposal Act. The person includes any of the individual partnership, association, cooperation, a trustee, assigner, or receiver of the legal successor thereof, the organized group of the person where incorporated, not any other office, employee, agent of the determinant with the and agency, instrumentality, federal government of any state with local unit of government, any of the foreign government presiding officer means for the individual presiding with the administrative junction with the initial decision become the final with his appeal for the presiding officer shall with the administrative logic except with his where 22.4b with the 22.16c 22.51 allow the regional or judicial officer to serve with the presiding officer proceeding meaning for the entirety of the single administrative adjunction within the filing of the complaint with the root of the issuance of the final order, including the action of the motion of the reconsideration 2232. Regional administrator meaning with the in case of the initiative with the Environmental Protection Agency, regional officer with the regional administrator of the region with the officer employed with the therefore with the authority to duly regulate. Regional hearing clerk meaning with the individual duly authorized to serve the hearing with the clerk given the regional with a short shall neutral in every proceeding with the corresponding with the regional hearing clerk shall address the regional hearing clerk at the address of the specified with the complaint with the case of the initiated with the Environmental Protection Agency headquarters, and the term regional hearing clerk means for the hearing clerk. Our regional judicial officer of the person designated with the regional administrator within 22.4b with the respondent meaning with any of the person conforming with the compliant with the state claiming it for the relief terms defined with the act not defined with the consolidated rule of the practice are used and consistent with the means of the given in this act. 22.4 powers and duties of the Environmental Appeals Board with the regional with the judicial officer, the presiding officer with the disqualification, withdrawal, and the reassignment. Environmental Appeal Board, the Environmental Appeal Board with the rules of appeal with the initial decision rules and order of the presiding officers with the proceedings under the consolidated rule of the practice with the approved with the settlement of the proceedings with under the consolidated rule of the practice with the commence with the EPA headquarters of the Environmental Appeals Board may refer to any of the case of the motion with the administrator of the Environmental Appeals Board with the discretion deemed to appropriate to so when the appeal of the motion is referred to the administrator of the Environmental Appeal of the Board, but all parties shall be notified with the reference Environmental Appeal Board, and the consolidated rules practice shall be interpreted with referring to the administrator. If in this case of the motion referred to the administrator of the Environmental Appeals Board, administrator may consult with the EPA employee with the concerning with the matter provided such for the cancellation does not violate with the 22.8. The motions directed with the administrator shall not be considered to exist of the motion with the disqualified pursuant to the paragraph D of the section of the motion with the field with the banners. Environmental appeal boards have referred to the administrator and exercise of the duty of the responsible for these consolidated rules and practice. Environmental appeal board may do all of the acts and take with all the measures for the necessary for the efficient and fair impartial injunction issuing arising proceeding with the including imposing and procedural sanctions against the party who without adequate justification failed to refuse to comply with the consolidated rule practice within an order. Environmental appeals board for the sanction may include the drawing adversely interference with the party striking with the parties for the proceedings of submission for the before from the record of the denying any and all relief sought by the party for the proceeding and regional judicial officer. Each of the regional administrative delegates or one or more of the regional judicial officers with the authority to act with the presiding officer in proceeding under subpart 1 of the part with the act of the subpart I of this part to act with the presiding officer until the responding file with the answer for the proceeding under the consolidated rule practice with the which for the subpart I with this part with the does not apply with the regional administrator may also delegate one or more regional judicial officer the authority to provide the settlement of the proceeding pursuant to Title 22.18b 23. Delegations will not prevent the regional judicial error from the region referring to any of the motion case of the regional administrator. A regional judicial officer shall be an attorney who has a permanent temporary employee with the agency and another federal agency with a permanent perform any other duties within the agency of the judicial officer shall not perform the prosecutorial investigation functions in the connection with any of the case which he serves as regional judicial officer. But the regional judicial officer shall not knowingly preside over the case involving any of the party concerning with the regional judicial officer performed any of the functions of the prosecution or investigation within 2 years preceding the commencement of the case. Regional judicial officer shall not persecute with the enforcement case, but then shall not be supervised by any of the persons supervised with the prosecution enforcement case, if it may be supervised by the regional council. The presiding officer shall conduct the fair and impartial proceeding, ensuring that all the facts of the fully elicited and educated at all issues and avoid delay with the presiding officer may conduct administrative hearings under the consolidated rule of the practice rules upon motion request of the officer for the offers of the proof for the issue of the necessary orders, administrative order for the affirmation for the take of the affidavit, examine the witnesses for the receipt of the documentary, other evidence, order party and officer for the agent to produce the testimony document the non-privileged evidence of the failing to production within their good cause called for the being shown to draw adverse inferences against that of the party and may be excluded evidence here and decide question of the fact of the law of the discreet required of the parties to attend conference for the settlement of the simplification of the issue for the expedite of the proceed of the issue for subpoenas authority for the act do all of the acts for the take of all the measures necessary for the maintenance of the order for the efficient fair for the impartial adjunction with the issue of the rising and the expedition proceedings governed by the consolidated rules and practices, disqualification with the withdrawal of the assignment of the administrator of the members environmental appeal board for the regional judicial officer with the administrative law judge may not perform the function provided within these consolidated rules practice regarding the manner with which have the financial interest and have the relationship with the party with the subject of the manner with which make it inappropriate for them to act as any party may at any time with the motion with the administrative of the regional administrative of the member of the environmental appeal board regional judicial officer administrative law judge request that he or she is disqualifying himself or herself from proceeding his motion with the disqualifying regional administrator of the regional judicial office administrator law judge denied a party may appeal the ruling with the environmental appeals and the motion for the disqualifying the member of the environmental appeals board is denied. Party will appeal with the ruling of the administrator of the shall be no more than the interlocutory appeal with the ruling of the motion with the disqualification administrative of the regional administrator of the member of the environmental appeals board, regional judicial office administrative law judge of the may at any time withdraw with any of the proceeding within he deems him or herself disqualified and unable to act any of the person administrator of the regional administrator of the regional judicial office administrative law judge of the disqualified withdrawal with the proceeding with the disqualified or qualified individual who has no infirmities listed in paragraph D1 of the section shall be assigned with the replacement of the administrator shall assign a replacement for regional administrator whose withdrawal of the disqualified should be the administrator of the withdrawal or disqualify the regional administrator from the region where to the case the region able to replace the administrator of the regional administrator would be disqualified from the region. The administrator shall assign the regional administrator for another region to replace the administrator of the regional administrator shall assign a new regional judicial officer with the regional judicial officer withdraw the disqualified chief administrative law judge that assigned the new law administrative law judge, regional administrative law judge withdraw the disqualified. Alright, if the chief of the administrative law judge of the day of the proceeding resigned with the case of the administrative law judge of the other than one original with assignment of the event with the unavailability of the administrative law judge of the way reassignment will result in efficiency for the scheduling of the hearings would not prejudice the parties. 22.5. Filing served by the parties for the form of all filed documents, business confidential claim. Filing of the document, the original, and one copy of each of the document intended for the part of the record shall be filed with the headquarters of the regional, her, and clerk, and appropriate with the proceeding with this before with the presiding officer filled with the clerk of the board with the proceeding of them before with the environmental appeals board. The document is filed with the receipt with the appropriate clerk with the documentation required to be filed with the environmental appeal board. With the document shall be sent with the clerk of the board, U.S. mail delivered by hand of the courier, including delivery of the U.S. Express mail by commercial delivery served for the transmit of the Environmental Appeals Board electronic system and according with the proceeding sections specified in Title 40 CFR 129.419. The presiding officer of the Environmental Appeals Board may order Order authorized requiring filing with a fast mile electronic filing system subject to any appropriate with the condition and limitation. The presiding officer or responded directly with the party with the original with the corresponding shall be filed with the regional hearing clerk party. These who correspond directly with the presiding officer shall file with the comply with the correspondent with the regional hearing clerk. Certified service shall with the company with the document filed with the service of the proceedings. Service of the document unless proceeding with the environmental appeals board. A copy of each of the documents proceedings shall be served with the presiding officer on each of the party proceedings. Proceeding before the environmental appeal board, a copy of the document filed with the proceeding of the shall be served with each of the parties. The server of the complainant shall serve with the respondent with the responsive. The representative is authorized to receive the service of the respondent behalf of the copy of the sign with the original complaint with it together with a copy of the consolidated rules and practice. The service shall be personally with a certified mail with a return receipt requested by any reliable commercial delivery service that provides written no verification of the notification of delivery. Where respondent is domestic foreign corporation, a partnership with the unincorporated association, which is subject to the suit under the common name of the complaint with the service of the officer for the partner, margining, and generally agent with any other person authorized for the appointment over the federal and state with the law of the receiver of the services of the process. When the respondent with the agent for the United States with the complaint with the server of the agent for the provide with the agent for regulation of the absence of the controlling regulation otherwise permitted by the law. Compliant with shall be asked to provide with a copy of the complaint into the senior executive official, all having them responsible for the overall operation of the geographical units wherever the alleged violation arose. If the agencies of the corporation complainant shall be served as prescribed in paragraph B12A of the section, respond with the state of the local unit 8 government agency department of the corporation other instrumentality. Complainant shall serve with the chief executive officer thereof otherwise permitted by law, where they respond with the state and local office of the complaint shall serve with such officer. 3. Proof of the service of the complaint should be made with the affidavit of the person making the personal service by the properly executed report with such of the proof of the service will be filed with the regional hearing clerk immediately upon completion of the service. The service of the filed document with other than compliant rulings, orders, or decisions. All documents filed with the party of the other than compliant with the rules, orders, or decisions shall be served by filing of the party on all parties of the service may be made personally with the U.S. mail, with including certified mail with the return of the receipt of the request of the overnight express priority mail by any of the reliable commercial delivery services by fast mile or other electronic means, including but not necessarily limited to the email and services and such for the electronic means with the consistent incentive in writing party with a consent with the service of the fast mile with the email must file an acknowledgement of the is consistent of its consent of identified with the type of electronic means with aggrieved to the electronic address to be with the appropriate clerk with additional presiding officer with the environmental appeals made by order. Authorized required service of the estimate of the email with electronic means with the subject with the appropriate with the condition with the limitation form of the document with accepted as provided with the section and ordered by the presiding officer of the environmental appeal boards. There are no specific requirements in form of the document. The first paragraph of the file of the document shall contain with the caption with identified with the respondent with the document number, the legal briefs, legal memorandum greater than 20 pages of the length with excluding attachments shall contain with the table of contents, table of the authorities of the page, reference of the original, any file documents other than exhibit with it shall be assigned with the party filing with is an attorney with the other representative with a signature of the constitute with the representation by a signer that has read the document but that has best knowledge of the information with half of the statement that they made by and by true that is not interposed with delay. The first document is filed with the person contained with the name of the mailing and address, the telephone number, the email address of the individual authorized to receive the service relating to the proceeding on the behalf of the person party shall promptly be any of the chain of the information with the headquarters of the regional hearing clerk or the clerk of the board appropriate as served copy of the presiding officer all of the parties of the proceeding and the party of the fails the furnish with the information of any chamber thereto for the service of the party. Last known address shall satisfy the requirements of paragraph B2 with the section 22.6. Environmental Appeals Board with the presiding officer may exclude with the record over any of the document if it does not comply with the section with the written over the exclusion with the stating of the reason thereof that shall be promptly with the person submitting with the document. Such person may with the amend with the resubmit with the exclude with the document with the up to the motion granted with the Environmental Appeals Board with the presiding officer as appropriate. Confidential business information. A person who wishes to assert a business confidential claim with regard to the information contained within the document to be filed with the proceeding under the Consolidated Rules of Practice shall assert with such a claim with accordance with Title 40 Part 2. At the time of the document with this file, with the document filed with the claim of the business confidential shall be available to the public and inspection of the copy. 2 version 80 of the document contained with the information claim with the confidential should be filed with the regional hearing clerk. 1 version of the document shall contain with the information claim with the confidential with the cover page shall include with the information required on paragraph C2 with the section with the word business confidentially asserted. Specific portions alleged with the confidential should clearly identify with the document. The second version of the document shall contain information except for the second specifically information claim with the confidential shall be acted, replacing notes indicating the nature of the information reactive to the cover of the page. Recovered page shall state that the information claimed with the confidential has been deleted with the complete with the comply with the document containing the information claimed confidential has been filed with the regional hearing clerk. Alright, both versions of the document with it shall be served with the presiding officer complying with the both versions of the document shall be served with any of the party non-party participant representative thereof the authorized to receive the information claimed confidential by the person making the claim with the confidential only with the re-acted version shall be served on with the person with the unauthorized receipt of the confidential information. Only second reacted version shall be treated with the public information of the Environmental Protection Agency officers employed and made to disclose the information claimed with the confidential accordance paragraph D1 of the section only authorized in Title 40 CFR Part 2. Alright, following the rules and orders and the decision. All ruling orders and the decision of the documents issued with the regional with the administrative presiding officer shall be filed with the headquarters of the regional hearing clerk with the property with the man with the allowed with the M. For all service of the service of the such document, all rulings, order, decision of the documents issued with the environmental appeal with the board shall be filed with the clerk of the board, the headquarters of the hearing clerk of the regional hearing clerk as appropriate. Most of the copies of the ruling, orders, and decision of the document. All parties services may be mailed with the U.S. mail, with include with the certified mail with the return received with the request of the overnight with the express party mail, environmental protection agency internal mail, and the reliable commercial delivery ship with electronic means, including not necessarily limited fast mile email. Computation 22.7. The computation extension of the time. Computation aimed at the period with the prescribed with allowed for the consolidated rules and practically otherwise provide with the day with the event with the designated with the beginning with the run and shall not be included with the Saturdays and Sunday with the federal holidays shall include whenever the day with the time of the prescribed and Saturday and Sunday with the federal holiday the day with the time period should extend into include the next business for the day extension time. The Environmental Appeal Board of the presiding officer of the may grant with the extension of the time of the following with the document untimely motion with the party with the proceed with the good cause shown with the after consolidated consideration prejudice of the parties upon the initiative of the name of the motion extension for the time that shall be filed with sufficiently to advance the due date but to also allow the other party the reasonable opportunity to respond to allow the presiding officer of the Environmental Appeals Board responsibly opportunity to issue the order complete of the service of the complaint is complete when the return receipt is signed with the service of all of the other documents is complete upon mailing place for the customer the reliable commercial delivery served with the fast amount with the other electronic means with the clue but not necessarily limited to the email upon the transmission with the document served with the U.S. mail EPA internal mail with the commercial delivery served with including overnight with the same delivery 3 day with the shall be added with the time allowed for the consolidated rules and practice for filing representative of the document. The time allowed for the serving of the representative of the document is not expanded by 3 days with the serve of the document served with the personal delivery fast mile other electronic means including but not necessarily limited to the email. 22A ex parte decision with the proceeding with no time of the issue with the complying with the administrative with the members of the environmental appeal with the board with the regional administrative with the presiding officer any of the other person who is likely to provide with the official with the end decision proceeding with the discover the ex parte with the merits of the proceeding with the interested person outside the agency with the agency staff with the member of the perform of the prosecutorial investigation function with the proceeding of the function factually related proceeding with any of the representative of such person any ex parte memorandum of the other communication with the administrator of the regional administrator environmental appeal board presiding officer during the relating to on the merits thereof on the behalf of any of the parties shall regard with the argument made with the proceeding shall be served upon all of the parties argument made proceedings shall be served on all other parties. The other parties shall be given an opportunity to reply with such memorandum communication requirement section shall not apply with any person with a formally discussed himself with all adjudicatory functions of the proceeding or issue the final orders pursuant to time to 18B3. Or examination of the documents filed. Subject for the provision of law with the restriction of public disclosure for the confidential information aimed at the person for the during the agency business for the hours inspection for the copy of the document filed with the proceed with the stuff of the document shall be made available to the regional hearing clerk with the hearing clerk with the clerk of the board as appropriate the copy of the duplicating document that shall be borne by the person seeking for the copy of the document. Agencies may waive the copy of the discretion. Subpart B, parties and appearances. I'm going to cut the tape there. Testing.